is here! Ladies and gentlemen, in my hands is the one we've all been waiting for, the brand new Nintendo Switch 2. Personally speaking, I've been very invested in this ever since they first announced it. Thought it looked amazing. I got my pre-order in, it arrived a few days late, which I know, all boo-hoo PC Centric. But importantly, this is not a review sample. This is something I've purchased with my own money, and what I want to do throughout this video and the review that we do in a month's time after we've had a lot of use with this thing is ultimately to determine whether this is something that's going to be a really good investment for anyone that wants to play all of their games, something that could be great if you do a lot of portable gaming, or whether it is just kind of not worth it. It's a lot of money. This particular pack is $500 in the States, certainly not cheap, and obviously you've got other alternatives, like you could pick up the original Switch, but then also you've got things like the ROG Ally, the brand new Xbox One that's been announced, and of course the big one, which is the Steam Deck, which actually is pretty similar in price to this, and obviously you think all of the PC games you can get on this, in theory, wouldn't need to pay a penny extra for any more games, whereas the price of this and the price of the games are certainly pretty expensive. I think this has the potential to be incredibly exciting, so I think we should get this unboxed right after a short word from this video's sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 4000D has returned anew with Corsair's Frame 4000D. This brand new case sees improvements left, right and centre, with a fully modular design for complete customization and an increase to the length to support larger graphics cards, with up to 405mm of clearance when using front fans. It supports two 360 radiators at the same time, BTF, Project Zero and Stealth motherboards, and it even has a GPU anti-sag arm to look after your sparkly new 50 series graphics card. Learn more about this monumental case today with the link down below.
So then everyone, the time has come. Shall we get this on our desk and actually unboxed and see what it's all about? And obviously very simple packaging, not really too much to report there, but you can see the Switch is actually presented right on the top. And I don't know if you saw the news story, but there was one store that actually was like stapling receipts to the box, and some of them were going through and actually hitting the screen. Not sure that was the best design in the world, but that's a sidebar, because the most important thing is going to be what this thing is actually like. Now obviously this is going to get bigger once we put the Joy-Cons on the side, but I had heard that this thing was quite a lot bigger, and indeed it is, and it's heavier. It's about 25% more, so I think it was about 300 grams before, now it's 400. But obviously the thing you are going to be greeted with is this significantly larger display. And it's not only larger, it's also higher quality when it comes to resolution and refresh rate, because this is 1080p 120Hz, which actually for something this size, I think is pretty impressive. There is one thing about it that we definitely don't like, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. What else do we have in our box? Well, obviously we have the Joy-Cons, and these are certainly a fair bit bigger than before. I mean, everything is just kind of scaled up. It's not like a crazy night and day difference. And the thing that I will immediately say, I kind of expected it to feel heavier because I have come from things like the Steam Deck that frankly, even though they're not crazy heavy, over sustained time, and once you've been gaming for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour or so, it really does get to the point where it's a little bit uncomfortable. So hopefully that is not going to be the case with this. And I love the way that those literally just drop in there like that. Oh yeah, I remember this. I never ever used this on the original Switch. If you want to turn it into more like a hybrid gamepad, then of course you can with this. I wonder whether this is genuinely going to be more useful than it was on the original Switch, because I don't know how many people actually used this before. Do let us know down in the comment section below. Of course though, the heart of what makes the Switch is going to be the dock. And again, plastic isn't exactly going to set the world on fire in terms of like build quality or something, but how often do you actually ever touch this bar when you're transporting it? A few changes this time around. I like the fact you actually get an Ethernet port as standard, which is good. The console itself, by the way, actually comes with significantly more storage or memory than you had before. So it's gone up from 32 gigabytes to 256, which sounds impressive. And I do think, especially if you're playing original Switch games, then obviously it is, but we don't actually know, or at least I haven't tested yet, how big the new games on the Switch 2 are going to be, because if you're talking like 80 gigabyte games, obviously that's not going to last that much longer. And you can still expand this with micro SD cards, but they do have to be micro SD card express now. Going back to the dock, we've got a USB-C that we're going to use for our AC adapter, HDMI out. This is now HDMI 2, not 2.1, so it will do 4K 60, 2560 by 1440 or 1080p at 120Hz. Realistically, I don't think this was ever really going to do 4K 120. Maybe in light games, like if you're going to play Tomb Raider Remastered, I'd like to see what the refresh rate and what the resolution could actually be from the power of this thing, as that's obviously a lightweight game, but realistically most things you're going to play, like Cyberpunk, let's say, or even Mario Kart World, they probably weren't ever going to run at 4K 120, so that's not really much of an omission. You do also have 2 USB-A's on the front though, which is better because obviously they're more accessible, going to be faster than before. Hopefully you should be able to charge stuff as well. But let's put this together properly and actually get this turned on and do our little comparison. So yes, okay, you can absolutely notice that they are very different beasts. I mean, they obviously look similar, and on camera they probably don't look that dramatically different, but when you actually get this in your hand, it does feel like a much, much larger device. I also really did not like the sticks on the original Switch, but these certainly look like they've got a little bit more movement in them. We also have this little C button down here as well, which I believe stands for chat. If you want to plug in like an external camera, then you can to this, and then you can have game chat. Personally, I'll get it out of the way right now, I don't see this working at all. Didn't work with something like Kinect, didn't work with things like PlayStation Eye. If anyone could make it work, maybe it's Nintendo, but feel free to let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Got USB-C on the top now, as well as on the bottom. We do have a 3.5mm combo jack. Then obviously your game cartridges will go in here, and this is nice because it will work with both the new Switch 2 games and the originals. It's not like the SD card, it's backwards compatible, which is great. But obviously if you do want to unlock the full potential of the Switch 2, then you are going to have to buy upgrades when they come available to get things like better textures or high resolutions and refresh rates and things. But if you are running like an original Switch game, it should still run better on the Switch 2. So hopefully something like Pokemon Violet, which in my experience really didn't run very well on the original Switch, hopefully that will run a whole lot better on the Switch 2 without needing to upgrade. But I imagine something like that, you probably will get an upgrade eventually. So that is the hardware of the Switch 2. As I say, you've got these release buttons, you've got your shoulder buttons on each side. But then one of the neat new features is that you do actually have a proper stand baked in. I mean, that feels, I've got to admit, a little bit cheap. The hinge feels nice though. So when you move it, well, there's no wobble. That is good actually in terms of what it offers, but this bit of plastic here is definitely quite thin. So there's going to be many a child out there, well, many an adult as well, that is going to break this and feel very, very sad. But the whole idea obviously is that you can just prop this up and then obviously grab the Joy-Cons and then just use this as a properly portable console. In terms of size, I do want to give you a proper side-by-side comparison. So here we have our Steam Deck and then the Switch 2 and the original Switch, and you can see that this really does fit in the middle, but the thing that I want to come across and might not come across properly until you get it in hand is just how much chunkier the Steam Deck is. This is the original LCD, not the OLED, so all of these actually are LCDs. If you're coming from something like a Steam Deck, you're going to find actually that this is probably a lot smaller, sleeker and thinner than you thought. Whereas if you've never seen anything like that, then obviously compared this to the original Switch, you probably are going to find that it is a fair bit bigger. But I think we've probably wasted enough time guessing. What you guys want to see is actually what this thing is like in operation. So let's plug in our USB. We have our little charge icon at the top. We hit our power button that is recessed. I think the reason for this is so it doesn't just come on like by accident in your bag or something, which actually, to be fair, is probably quite good. And then the screen lights up. And the downside with this is it's not OLED, but I can tell immediately that this is a way, way better screen than the one from the original Switch. So if you're coming from that, that is still going to be a massive upgrade. This is high refresh rate, supports variable refresh rate as well. Oddly not actually output to your TV, which is a bit weird. Hopefully they'll update that a little bit later. So to set it up, all you need to do is just kind of go through what country you're in, internet connection. Gives you a little bit of explainer of how you can use it, how you can sort of use the stand, how to detach the Joy-Cons. Oh, it's actually making me do it, okay. It's asked me to detach them and I've gone, well, hang on, this feels a bit weird. That's not exactly particularly comfortable, is it? I got excited because I remember that there are actually mouse sensors inside here now. So if you want to use this like a PC in something like Civilization, that's pretty cool. You do have some extra bits that will go on the side of these just to make it more comfortable. So it is kind of different to how it was on the old Switch. Yes, that just clicks on there like that. And then, yeah, okay, that now feels like a proper controller. It has this little grip thing here. This is actually for the mouse sensor, a bit of a Teflon pad, I suppose, so that you're not kind of wearing away the surface of your Joy-Con. Now this bit is important. I read about this on Reddit this morning. If you are going to swap from an original Nintendo Switch console, you need to do this now, because without, at the moment at least, I'm sure they'll patch it, but without actually doing a system reboot, a factory reset, you don't get this option again. So do this now. Is this going to be wireless? Look, okay. System settings. System transfer to Switch 2. For some reason, some save games are going with it. So they're going to go onto the Switch 2 and then not be on the original Switch anymore. Don't understand why, so be careful if you're trying to give this to like someone else in your family. Then we need to plug in our AC adapters to both consoles, but then we just need to press start. Oh, and would you look at that? We seem to be done. Editor Cole, how long did that take? Boom, there you are. System transfer is complete, so we're going to say OK. Same theme as the one that was on this console has been applied. Then we can go to the home menu just by turning on our Joy-Cons. It's going to load in, and yeah, again, that screen is way, way better. And you can see that actually a lot of the games are being re-downloaded as we speak, look. So the ones that need a game card aren't. So let's see what happens when we get Pokemon Violet. We whack that into place. And we get going. We do have to do a little download. Oh, but this is it, ladies and gentlemen. The moment of truth has arrived. The problem game, this is gonna be the best thing to test. Is Pokemon Violet going to be dramatically better? And immediately I can say yes. I mean, the screen alone is so much better. I was so disappointed when they said that this had an LCD. I mean, if anything, I was quite angry for two reasons. Firstly, everything seems to have an OLED screen at the moment. So if all of your competitors have an OLED, and even the console really that you're replacing had an OLED, why would you swap back to an LCD? It seems like a step backwards, and I stand by that. But as I said earlier, I mean, the screen is so much better than the original Switch. If you didn't know what OLED was, you would be so incredibly happy. I mean, the pessimist inside me does think that part of the reason for this was not just to save them cost, but it was also so that they can bring out the Switch 2 OLED at a later date, and obviously people buy another one. That seems inevitable, but I'm pleased to say that the game does look way better than it did before. What happens though if we actually unplug this? Because realistically, this is how most people are going to play the game. Has that made the dramatic difference? I think it has, you know. I think the refresh rate has gone down. Obviously, as it has VRR, variable refresh rate, it means that if you do unplug the AC adapter and you do get less FPS, then it's still going to appear smooth, it's just not going to be as responsive, right? But whether the battery life is going to be up to snuff, well, that's something we're going to have to do a bit of testing. Especially bearing in mind, almost certainly when you play a Switch 2 game that is going to be more intense, obviously it is going to chug through the battery life even faster. But if you did have an OLED display, it would give you better battery life because those panels are more efficient. Okay then, I would definitely say that my expectations are perhaps a little bit more in check now, because I was going to say that was a big upgrade from Violet without any form of like extra download or anything, but clearly that's what we had to download before we could actually play the game. Another free update is available for this one, Mario Odyssey. Pretty much a similar story actually as what we had with Pokemon Violet. I mean, it looks way, way better, even though we're in a bit more of a muted part of the game. It's very, very bright in the HDR. You know, it's not 4,000 nits. It's not going to like blow your face off, but the form factor I think is really nice. As long as you can actually lean on something, I don't think you're going to have a problem with this. Let's say that you can't though. So let's now play a little bit more freestyle, let's say, and see how we get on. It definitely does feel heavier than the original Switch. I think that is noticeable, but I wouldn't say at the moment it's a problem. I mean, you can usually kind of like prop up on a knee or something. It's not a great way to play, no matter what the device is. Even if it is lighter, you should always try and lean on something if you can, or obviously use the far more versatile kickstand now. If you are like sat at a table or you have like a tea tray or something in front of you. Let's see what happens if we unplug it though. Does that feel a bit, yeah, okay, so it definitely isn't as nice when you're playing it on battery. You can tell that the frame rate has reduced, but it's nice and seamless. It's again, not like one of those Windows devices where as soon as you actually unplug it, the whole thing freaks out for 30 seconds or so before you can start playing again. It's all done dynamically behind the scenes. I think it's safe to assume if there's a free update, or even a paid update I suppose, but ideally a free update to the game that you're going to play, it is kind of like, well, getting a brand new console. It's the same game, but it looks way, way better than it did before, in most part really to the extra power, but then also in tandem with the new display. That isn't as good as if it was OLED, let's make that very clear, but yeah, still works a treat. Really, really impressed actually. Moment of truth then, is this just gonna drop into place? Yes, I know we'd already tested this, but how quickly is it gonna appear on our screen? Pretty quick, basically the same as it was before. And it tells us that we're compatible with HDR. Wow, okay, I'm glad that we did this in this video actually. I was thinking maybe we should save this for the full review, but wow, okay, that's kinda I don't want to say it's unreal because, you know, it's not like Indiana Jones running on an RTX 5090, obviously. But compared to what we've seen from the Nintendo Switch, that's kind of crazy, really, especially for like a free update. Definitely appreciate that. Nintendo do need to do that, I think, with more games just to make it a bit more enticing, really. But the HDR looks great, actually. It really, really does. Everything just has a fair bit more pop. Everything is working as it should. I know it's not going to look so good when we do have a, you know, not supported game, but a unoptimized title. But yeah, that is a night and day difference, actually. And I can tell you how much power this is using as well, because we have it plugged into a power meter, and it's only 18.2 watts. Again, compared to like a PlayStation or something that, as we said, is getting on for 200, or even an RTX 5090 alone can be 550 watts. We're being very, very efficient with what we have on offer here. So yeah, I am impressed so far. Not with this is my least favorite thing, but yeah, with what's on offer here, it kind of exceeded expectations. But I said at the start of this video that I wanted to do a comparison versus obviously the Steam Deck and the original Switch. Well, the main thing with the original Switch is, as I say, pricing. You're going to be able to get these really, really cheap, either in clearances or just on the used market. And if what you want to be able to do is give your kids something that they can just play and enjoy, a bit more family-friendly titles, then I think it's still a safe bet to go for the original Switch. Save yourself the money. They're not going to notice a difference. But as I say, if you want to be able to go back and play your existing library, or you're a massive Nintendo fan, or you're excited maybe for the exclusive From Software game, things like that, then I think there is enough with the Switch 2, if you can get hold of one, to make it worthwhile. But yes, with the original Switch, I think actually it is quite an easy upgrade, because whilst fundamentally on paper you could say, well, the same games on both, you're not necessarily getting that much new other than a few new titles that will creep out slowly. For people that have been yearning for more, and I know there have been a lot of people yearning for more for ages, then yes, the Switch 2 does make sense. But if you're a bit like me and you are a PC gamer, and you have a very large library of PC games, then this is obviously where something like the Steam Deck comes in. And I really do love this device. I've had a fair bit of use out of it, especially when I go away. And the real benefit with this is, whilst it used to be that the cost of entry was quite high, but compared to the Switch 2, you could probably get one of these for less actually than the price of the Switch 2. The real benefit with this is you don't need to buy any new games. You just buy them on PC. You basically play them on PC all of the time, but whenever you go out and about, you use the Steam Deck. That in principle is great, but the usability of this thing has I don't want to say stop me using it, but stop me using it as often as I perhaps could do. So I'm not sure if it made the cut, but earlier I said about the real good thing about the Switch is just how easy it is to sleep and then put it in your bag. And if you're on like a 3-train journey, it's easy just to like keep taking it out, play it for 5-10 minutes, put it away, vice versa. You're maximizing your time. And even on the Steam Deck, whilst it's not, you know, it's not bad, it's not as bad as it was on Windows, it still doesn't work as well as it potentially could do. And obviously you've got different compatibility with different games. Whether you like it or not, you do have to be more nerdy than something like a Switch, because you know that not every game is going to work. You're going to have to optimize the settings. You're going to have to put up with lower frame rates, let's say, or like some quirks and things in certain titles. And I still find that like the sleep mode isn't anywhere near as good as it is on the Switch. But the main thing for me that kind of stopped me using this all of the time is just the fact that it's just a little bit too big. I would have loved the fact if there was a smaller version of this. It's difficult to know how it could be better, because I think it needs to be smaller and lighter. I'm sure there'll be a new version of this that will have a more powerful chip in the not too distant future. The real benefit was that the touchpads on this are really good. So if you want to play something like Civilization, then you can, with it kind of feeling a bit more like a mouse and keyboard, if you like, without having to use joysticks, which are great in some games, but not like fantastic in others. But obviously the way that the Switch 2 has got around this, and again, we'll be using this in just a second, is actually to put the mouse sensor, if you like, or put an optical sensor actually within the Joy-Cons itself. So if you are using it in this setup and you want to play Civilization, then it can become a mouse, which is great. But I don't know how that's going to work without a keyboard. And even if it would work with a keyboard, it's not something you're going to be able to take with you all of the time. Whereas obviously the Steam Deck, really easy to play something like Civilization on the go just by using what you have available. But if you're specifically a PC gamer, I guess you're not too fussed about what it is that you play, or maybe you are kind of wanting to play some Nintendo stuff. I actually think there's a fair bit more flexibility in the Nintendo system than there is on a Steam Deck. Steam Deck is fantastic if you're going on consistent long journeys and you absolutely know you want to play some specific PC titles everywhere you go. But I think in terms of what the actual just better gaming device is in terms of practicality and usability, I've been more impressed actually with the Switch 2 with its like smaller and lighter size. Feel free to disagree with me. You know, that's why both of these exist. As I say, I love the fact that you can go back, especially and play like older titles on the Steam Deck. That's great. And if you're using it in like more of a normal mode and you're not resting, you know, you can use it for a while, it's fine. But I just find consistently, if I'm playing Civ for a long time, I have to kind of do that, and I'm getting a little bit of like pain here and there. Maybe that's just because I'm playing too long, but that does just come with a larger size and a larger weight. And speaking of large weight, is Fortnite done yet? But right, okay, I'm pleased to say Fortnite has finally downloaded, and this is now going to be the point where we can actually test out our little mouse. And when I first saw this online, I did think, you must be joking. There is no way. Well, I thought it would work at Nintendo, but there's no way that this can actually be a good experience. But this is going to be how we find out. I've got to say, moving this around, actually, it does feel like a mouse. It's weird having the buttons on the side as well. I'm not entirely sure how that is going to work out, but I can verify that moving this around, it does feel like a mouse. Doesn't feel like a Logitech G Pro Superlight, feels like a mouse. I mean, let's grab, not even planned, the one and only piece of Centric mouse mat available in the clearance sale now with the link below. Again, sorry the shipping is expensive, but if you want a lovely mouse mat like this, you can get yours before they sell out. And let's see what this is actually like when it's on a mouse mat. I mean, it's better, but again, it does not feel like the best cutting edge gaming mouse in the world. But if you're just using it for a bit of Civ or something, it's probably fine, but it's not going to replace your gaming PC anytime soon. And the good news is, ladies and gentlemen, that you have crossplay. So all of your skins will carry over, which is great. Unfortunately, the bad news is it doesn't look like the mouse support is actually in this game, which, as I say, kind of makes sense because normally you want to like be able to use a mouse and a keyboard. So without a mouse and a keyboard, I don't really understand how it would work in something like this. Civilization, I kind of get because, well, you only use like a couple of keys on the keyboard really, unless you're a pro player, and then most of the stuff is done with a mouse. But yeah, with this, I can't really see how you'd be able to fire and stuff. So you're just gonna have to play the old-fashioned way. And it looks as if you don't need a Nintendo subscription, which is cool. Okay, so let's go and proceed. What do we have? Well, I'll tell you right now, that is not 4K resolution. It is, well, it may well be outputting at 4K, but it certainly doesn't look like it. It's a big step up versus the original Switch, I'll give you that, and you've got your HDR, so it still looks nice. I mean, look, you've got things like the shadows as well, like a pretty basically rendered. It's not the highest quality thing in the world. There's probably a fair few optimizations that they can do, and I mean, if you are using your console to play Fortnite, then I think you definitely will be very pleased with how much better it looks. But yes, this is not going to replace your Xbox, PS5, or your PC anytime soon. But of course, don't forget you can buy a Pro controller that will give you a better result. But it's just like the joysticks just aren't quite up to like the sensitivity that you need for games like this, really. I've never found aiming all that easy in something like this. It just makes it a bit of a tough sell for me personally. Okay, if you're using it as a properly portable device and you're using it handheld and where you are there's internet and for whatever reason you want to like, you know, progress a little bit through the battle pass or something like that, fine, but I can't see myself ever really like enjoying this game unless you could use a mouse and keyboard or certainly like an Elite controller with it. It's just the sort of game where I think you need to have as much control as possible. And whilst these may well have a lot of fancy features and they may well be a bit better than ones that they replaced, it doesn't fundamentally change what it is, which is a Switch Joy-Con. I mean, to be fair, should we try this with a mouse and keyboard? And here we go then. Oh my God, it doesn't work. I'm lying. There is no Fortnite with mouse and keyboard. I mean, if you're interested, we're outputting at 3840 by 2160 at 60 FPS. It is actually quite hard in a way to kind of sum this up in a couple of sentences because the Switch 2, it's just going to be different things for different people. As I say, unapologetically for me, this is supposed to be for portable gaming now, really. Portable gaming and for parties. And for that, it kind of does everything I want it to do. It just cleans up the image, it makes it more accessible, things are going to run at higher frame rates, it's enabling me to go back and play the games from the original Switch that I missed out on and not kind of feel that they look rubbish on, frankly, my way too big television. But as a portable console, I think that just the improvements have made a big difference. I am slightly concerned about the battery life, but again, this is something I'll be testing long term. I don't want to tell you about it, you know, within like 5 hours use or something. We'll cover all of that stuff in the full review. But in a nutshell, if you did want to know the difference really, as I say, between this, the original Steam Deck, ROG Ally and things, they are separate enough to have their own audiences. But if I had to pick one out of all of them, honestly, I think it probably would be, for me, the Switch 2, because I'm not portable gaming like all of the time, and I prioritize really having something that is easy to use, easy to pick up and play, over something that is better, let's say, for like really long sessions. I mean, I really do like playing Civilization on the Steam Deck, on flights and things, but you still need to take a battery bank with you, and you still run into the problem where, as I say, it gets a little bit more uncomfortable over time. Whereas even though the downside with this is that obviously it is going to cost you a fair bit of money when it comes to buying games for it, if you are happy to do so and obviously you want to play the Nintendo exclusive games, then I'm just glad that they've kind of brought this up to speed with modern features, so you're not having to pick between like the latest games that look great or just Nintendo games that are really fun but just don't really look that great. For me, it does what it's supposed to. It's made it easier to use, much better screen, fantastic. But as I say, there's a lot more to learn, so we'll be doing this over the full review. So let me know what you want me to cover, any more like differences with other devices and things. Let me know down in the comment section below. I will be reading all of them, and I will be putting that feedback into the full review that we do in about 3 weeks' time or so. So yes, really hope you've enjoyed this video. Get yourself subscribed if you're not already for that full review. Smash the like button if you've enjoyed this, it really helps out. And if you are interested in current pricing, I'll try and find some that are still available, and I'll list it down below with our affiliate links.
And while you're down there, why not check out the new Corsair Frame 4000D? Working as the perfect blend of size and compatibility, this affordable chassis comes with or without fans, has extra ventilation down the bottom, and larger mesh cutouts on the front for power-hungry components. It's also designed to be as easy to build in as possible, with modular components and the Infinorail fan mount system that supports 120, 140, and even 200mm fans on the front. Get your build on today with Corsair, check out the link down below.
But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.